My name is Margaret Thompson, 71 years old, and for the last 12 years I have been the stupidest woman alive. The house on Maple Drive, red brick, white shutters, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, the one Richard and I bought in 1979 for $48,000, was the only thing I had left of him after the heart attack took him on the 9th hole in 1998. 2 sons. David, the older one, left for London the minute he finished college and never looked back except to send money. Stephen, the baby, moved back home the week after his father's funeral, just until he got on his feet. That was 1998. He never left. For 12 straight years David wired $2,000 on the first of every month so his brother could keep breathing without working. I never asked David to do it. He just did. And I never stopped it because I thought a mother doesn't choose between her children. I thought love meant swallowing every bitter pill and smiling while you choke. I was wrong. I paid for that mistake with the roof over my head. On March 14th I had the stroke that should have killed me. Instead it woke me up. This is the story of how my own son sold my house while I was unconscious, changed the locks while I was learning to walk again, and how I crawled out of the grave he dug for me with my own 2 shaking hands. The morning of March 14th started normal. I woke at 6 like always, put the coffee on, filled the bird feeder because the cardinals were Richard's favorite, watered the roses he planted the year we moved in. I was reaching for the tea tin on the top shelf when the room tilted sideways. I remember thinking, oh no, not again, right before my knees hit the tile and the kettle started screaming like it knew what was coming. Mrs. Henderson next door found me at noon when she came to return the pie plate. She called 911. By the time the ambulance got there I couldn't move my left side and my words were gone. They carried me out on a stretcher past Richard's old workbench in the garage that Stephen had turned into storage for his gaming chairs. I remember staring at the ceiling of the ambulance thinking, please God, don't let me die before I fix whatever I broke with my boys. I woke up 3 days later in ICU with tubes down my throat and David's face hovering above me, unshaven, eyes red. He had flown 16 hours straight from London. Stephen had sent him one single text, Mom's stable. Don't worry. I'm handling everything at home. Handling everything. Those 3 words would become the knife he twisted for the next 2 years. David slept in the plastic chair beside my bed for 3 nights running. He held my hand when they pulled the breathing tube out. He learned how to help the nurses change the sheets when I couldn't move. He cried quietly when the doctors said I might never walk again. Stephen came once, the first night, wearing the same hoodie he wore in high school. The nurse handed him a stack of forms. He signed them without reading, asked if Mom had life insurance, then left. I was too drugged to understand. David asked every doctor every hour if I would know my own name tomorrow. They said maybe. Stephen never came back to hear the answer. On the 5th day David was falling asleep standing up. I managed to croak, go home, shower, sleep. He didn't want to leave me alone. I promised I would be fine. That was the day Stephen changed the locks, emptied the house, and sold it to his college roommate for half price while I was busy trying not to drool on myself in speech therapy. They kept me in the hospital 19 days. 19 days of learning to swallow applesauce again, 19 days of physical therapists moving my left arm like it belonged to a doll, 19 days of staring at the ceiling tile that had a water stain shaped like Richard's face. Discharge morning David wheeled me out in a rental chair. The drive home felt like floating. I was actually excited to see my kitchen, my bed, my own toilet. When we turned into Maple Drive my heart stopped. A moving truck blocked the driveway. Strangers carried my dining table out the front door, the one Richard and I bought on our 10th anniversary in Vermont. A young woman in yoga pants waved like we had arranged to meet. Mrs. Thompson? Stephen said you're downsizing to assisted living. Congratulations on the quick sale. My house key slid into a brand new lock and stopped cold. David's face went the color of death. I started shaking so hard the wheelchair rattled on the sidewalk. That night in a Marriott hotel room David showed me the county records on his laptop. House sold March 16, cash, $480,000. My forged signature on every single page. I stared at that fake signature until my eyes burned. My real handwriting shakes so bad I can't sign a birthday card without looking drunk. This one was smooth, confident, practiced. My own son had practiced forging my name while I was unconscious. Stephen walked into the hotel room 2 days later wearing a Rolex Submariner that cost more than my first car. I asked the only question that mattered, "Where will I live tonight, Stephen?" He looked at the carpet, then at me, then gave the half-smile he used when he was 10 and broke my crystal vase. "We got you a beautiful studio at Golden Oaks, Mom. 6 months prepaid, all activities included, you'll love bingo." Prepaid with my house money. David stood up so fast the lamp crashed to the floor. Hotel security came running. Stephen left without hugging me goodbye. The last thing he said before the door closed was, "Mom, you weren't going to live there forever anyway." I sat on that hotel bed and cried until there was nothing left but dry heaves and the taste of metal in my mouth. We lived in that Marriott for 9 straight weeks because I refused to move into the old age home my son bought with my blood. David paid every night, every meal, every bottle of Ensure the hospital said I needed. I woke up every morning reaching for the light switch that wasn't there. Every night I saw my kitchen, the blue tiles Richard laid himself in 1987, gone forever. David hired Rachel Patel, the best elder law attorney in the state, tiny Indian woman with fire in her eyes and zero patience for bullshit. She looked at the forged power of attorney and said one word, prison. We filed emergency injunction, criminal fraud, forgery, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, everything the law allowed. The judge froze any further sale, but the new couple had already moved in, painted my bedroom butter yellow, hung new blinds, parked their Tesla where Richard's old Ford used to sit. I drove past once in David's rental car. The woman waved again like we were friends. I threw up in the footwell. Stephen blocked my number the same week. His wife kept posting Instagram stories from South Beach. My money paid for the private cabana, the bottomless mimosas, the new Louis Vuitton bag. I sat in court in a wheelchair for 14 solid months. Every single hearing I was there, hair unwashed, left hand curled like a claw, but there. First time Stephen saw me roll and he looked like he had seen a corpse walk. The judge asked me to identify my own signature on the sale papers. I held that page with both trembling hands and said loud enough for the whole room to hear, "That is not my hand." My son knows I shake worse than a leaf in a hurricane. He wrote this while I was in a coma fighting for my life. The silence was so thick you could spread it on toast. The handwriting expert took 12 minutes to prove forgery. The cash buyer started sweating bullets when the IRS came asking where $480,000 unexplained dollars came from. The buyer rolled over on Stephen in exchange for immunity. Said Stephen threatened to back out unless he closed in 48 hours, promised, "My family won't fight, Mom's basically dead anyway." Stephen's lawyer tried every dirty trick, painted David as the greedy NRI son who abandoned his poor mother, showed David's London salary slips, called me a confused old woman who didn't know what day it was. I took the stand again even though my voice was barely a whisper. The judge asked if anyone forced me to sell. I looked straight at Stephen sitting there in his new suit and said, "The only force used on me was my son's pen while I couldn't move, couldn't speak, and didn't even know my own name." Stephen's face folded like wet paper. The judge canceled the sale in one hearing. House came back to my name. Stephen stood up and walked out without permission. The bailiff had to drag him back by the arm. I didn't feel joy. I felt nothing but empty. We put the house on the market ourselves, $920,000 asking price. Stephen showed up the night before closing with his 5-year-old daughter on his hip, real tears or crocodile I no longer cared. "Mom, please, that's our family home, Dad built it with his own hands." I looked at my granddaughter's face, same blue eyes as Richard, then at my son, and said the words I had practiced in my head for 14 months. "The day you changed the locks while I was learning to walk again, it stopped being a home. It became a crime scene." I shut the door. My granddaughter waved bye-bye through the window. I cried harder for her than I ever cried for him. We closed the sale 2 days later. Money came. I bought a small condo downtown, ground floor, rose garden in the back, no stairs ever again. David wanted to give me everything. I made him take half. Stephen's wife messaged from a new number, your granddaughter asks about grandma every day. I deleted it and blocked the number. Some nights I still wake up reaching for Richard's cold side of the bed. Some mornings I still smell hospital antiseptic and panic. But then I walk into my kitchen, my tiles, my coffee pot, my name on the deed, my locks that only I have keys to, and I breathe again. My son tried to bury me alive while the dirt was still warm from the stroke. I just decided to climb out of the grave he dug, brush the dirt off my dress, and lock the gate behind me forever. I am 71 years old, half paralyzed, half broke, and for the first time in my life completely free. Stephen will never spend another night under a roof I paid for. And every time the roses bloom in my new garden I touch them and whisper, this home no one can steal. Because the only home he couldn't sell was the one I finally built inside my own chest after he tried to kill it.